have you ever watched a YouTube video with the Rubik's Cube and wondered, what's the history behind this? Maybe you haven't, but I'll still teach you anyways. So it started off in 1974, Hungary. Erno Rubik made the first Rubik's Cube using paper clips, rubber bands, and wooden blocks to hold it together. He called it the Magic Cube at first. Then one day he accidentally mixed the Rubik's Cube and then realized solving it would be harder than he thought. It took him a month to devise a plan and solve the Magic Cube. A few years later, he called it the now known Rubik's Cube, and it was going to release worldwide. In 1980, the Rubik's Cube took the world by storm. Millions were sold. And in 1982, the first Rubik's Cube competition was held in Budapest, Hungary. 20 people competed, and Min Tai held the record with a 22.95 solve. A slightly better solve than what I did at 25.55. I'll show you at the end of this video. Even though the Rubik's Cube was one of the greatest toys at that time, the sales plummeted at the end of the year because most people lost interest in the puzzle, and people who did have that spark for a Rubik's Cube already had one. In 1982 and 1983, the sales were well over 60 million, but in 1984 it went down to a mere 4 million. Picture this. It's the mid-90s and the internet is huge now. People are really bored, so they start talking about random stuff on the internet. One day they bring up the topic of the Rubik's Cube, and people start sharing on how they solved the Rubik's Cube. And in 1996, one of them would change the game of the Rubik's Cube forever. The Jessica Friedrich method, or more commonly known as the infamous CFOP method. This method brought back Rubik's Cubing, and the people were loving it. Later, in 2003, the second Rubik's Cube tournament was held in Toronto, Canada, with almost 100 people competing. In the tournament, new events were added and the record single and average was broken for the 3x3. Many people say that this was one of the most successful tournaments back then. Now, this competition left many people also wanting to compete. So a year later, the World Cubing Association was founded to make more competitions around the world. And from 2004 to 2007, more than 100 competitions were held worldwide. Cubing was rapidly growing, but there was one problem. The Rubik's Cubes were very old, and people tried modding them, but it still turned like the Titanic trying to avoid the iceberg. So that led people making their own cubing companies. And two of the most notable companies were Moyu and GAN. They are still, to this day, dominating the market of cubing. Now you may ask, who is the best cuber in history? Well, at that time, it was none other than Felix Zemdegs. He held the 3x3 single world record in 2014 with a 4.73, and then in 2018 with an astounding 4.22, and an amazing solve in 2020 with a 4.16. But what about the best cuber at the current moment? Well, it's none other than Max Park, who broke the 3x3 single world record on June 11, 2023 with an astonishing 3.13 solve, just 0.13 seconds away from a sub 3 second solve. And what about the 3x3 average? Well, it was Max Park and Timon Kolanczycki tied with a 4.86. But then a literal child demolished that with a 4.48 average. That is like 0.4 seconds off from the previous world record average. Well, who is this child? It's none other than Yi Heng Wang. Another prodigy in the making who might be better than Felix Zemdegs, Max Park, and Timon Kolanczycki. Alright, so that is the end of the history of the Rubik's Cube. Now, as promised, I'm going to show you my 25.55 solve.
Yes, let's go!
Thank you so much for watching, guys. Don't forget to like and subscribe so you can see more wonderful content like this. And I'll see you in the next video. Peace out.